Hello everyone, I am Neha Kazi from Leelavati Lalji Dayal High School and College of Commerce. In our history class today, we're going to talk about chapter number 2, Historiography, Indian Tradition. So let us begin with the chapter. So we have already discussed what historiography is in chapter number 1. So here we will start with the tradition of Indian historiography. All right. So how was it in the ancient period? Now see, even at that point of time, they had, passed down what was their tradition, what was their mythological stories, and how their social transition had happened. All of this was passed down from generation to generation through recitation. All right, this used to happen in ancient India. All right, so their art of writing was actually known to them, known to the Indians as early as 3rd millennium BCE. But the problem is that till today nobody is able to interpret the writing of that period. Okay, so the earliest known written documents so found in India are from the inscriptions. They are in a form of inscriptions. All right, and the first known specimen of writing was found on the rock inscription and stone pillar dated back to 3rd century BCE. It was inscribed during the rule of Emperor Ashoka. All right, so this is just a gist of what the ancient historiography is all about. Let's proceed and talk about more of this in detail. So these inscriptions we also found on coins, there were metal images, there were sculptures, copper plates, all of this from the 1st century CE. They actually depicted the dates of kings, their dynastic genealogies, then their territorial extent, the administration of the kingdom, empire, the political events, social organizations, climate, famines, etc. So all of this was described with the help of these inscriptions. All right. So the Indian ancient literature, which is there, including Ramayana and Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Jain and the Buddhist texts that are there, all of these actually give us about more information about history. Not just this, but also the works which is written by various Indian authors. There are also travelogues by foreign travelers. These are all a part of source of history. All right, they are an important source of history to us. Okay, so writing of biographies of kings and the dynastic histories, this also marks an important step in Indian historiography. So there were many writers who wrote about a specific king and his kingdom, the time during that era. Okay, so it helps us in getting to know about the past events that had happened at that point of time. So that is why these historical, biographies are also an important source of history. Let's proceed. Okay. So that was ancient. Now in the medieval period, we have a lot of writers who came in. So we will talk about them. So the first one is Kalhana, and he wrote the 12th century CE book Raj Tarangini, and it was on the history of Kashmir. Okay, so it actually resembles the modern historiography the way he has written the book. And it was also written after critically examining various sources like the inscriptions, the coins, the remains of ancient monuments, the dynastic records, and of course the local traditions. So considering all these things and critically examining all these things, later on it was this book which came out that he wrote. Okay, then we also have a lot of Muslim historians who came in and they wrote about various kings also. So Ziauddin Barani is what we'll talk about first. So in his opinion, it is not enough to record just the ruler's valor means strength, bravery, courage. Okay, he also spoke about the welfare and policies that the king or the ruler made. Not just this, but he also said that the drawbacks of the ruler are also to be mentioned. So, not only the good things that the king is doing, but also the drawbacks that are there or the wrong policies that resulted in his failure. These things are also to be mentioned in the books. Okay, so he should write about the impact of teaching of the wise, learning, and saints on the cultural life of people. So he said everything like this should be included when we are writing about history. All right. Then comes in Babur. So he described battles which were fought by him. He also recorded minute observations about various regions and cities that he has visited. Okay, minute details he gave out about all of his experiences. So we also get the information about the local economy, customs, and the flora fauna of that time. Okay, let's proceed and talk about Abul Fazl. So he actually spoke about the analysis of historical information which is based on authentic documents. Okay, so he said to scrutinize or to critically analyze the information is important. Okay, so his method is devoid of prejudice and hence realistic. What does this line mean? That he, when critically examining the documents or the information, there is no biasness in it. All right, there is no prejudice, which means extreme hatred or negative attitude towards something. So in simple terms, he is very unbiased. Okay, and that is why his work is very realistic. Okay, so even if it is good or bad that the king has done, everything or whatever was happening during that era is mentioned. All right, so let's talk about the features of Muslim historiography since we discussed about three of them. So the Muslim historians in the medieval era in India were influenced by Arabic and Persian historiography. All right. So the loyalty and eloquence in praising the emperor reflected in the writings. All right. So the practice of adding suitable poetic quotes and beautiful pictures was also introduced. So when these Muslim writers started writing about history, they actually gave out, quotes from some poems, and they also started putting in beautiful pictures to make their writing more interesting. All right. Let's proceed with the chapter and talk about the Bhakar. Okay, so now Bhakar contains eulogies of heroes and stories of historic events, battles, and also the lives of great men. So Bhakar is an important type of historical document of medieval times. Why? Because it gives out the story of all the historic events, the battles, and the lives of the great men that were there in that era. Okay, so there are various types of bhakars. Now let us talk about that. So bhakar is divided into various types such as biography of things, dynastic history, description of events, history of seconds, then autobiographies, then it is regarding the grievances, it is also based on mythology and state administration of a king. All right, so all of these topics are included in the Bakhar. Okay. So there are various Marathi Bakhars that are there. So Sabhasad Bhakar was written by Krishnaji Anand Sabhasad during the reign of Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj. It is an important Bhakar for getting information about the rule of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. All right. So Bhau Sahebanchi Bhakar describes the battle of Panipat. Then there is another Bhakar which entitles Panipatchi Bhakar, that is also about the same event. Then Holkaranchi Kaifiyat provides information about the Holkars and their contribution to Maratha rule. Now these students, these topics that we are talking about right now here, these are the Bakars that they have written and who has written it and about what. So you can make a table while learning so that you can remember it easily. All right, because it can come out in your MCQs anywhere in your match the following or choose the correct alternative as well. All right, so you can keep this in mind. Then we talk about the historiography in the modern period in India. We spoke about ancient, medieval, and now we're talking about modern period. So there were archaeological excavations that started in the 20th century under the British rule in India. All right. So many Britishers also wrote about the Indian history. Their writing actually showed great influence of the colonial policies of British. Okay, so it was more of, they were talking about how they had set up colonies and how their policies were there in India. So their writings actually displayed an absence of objective perspective. Now when we say objective perspective here, it did not have absence of objective perspective. Here means what? That their writings were very subjective. Okay, so according to their perspective, what they thought was correct, their route, there was no subjectivity, which means they did not write an event as it is. Okay, they gave their perspective to history. Okay, and there was more of prejudice also about various aspects of Indian culture. Prejudice, I have already said this, it means having a negative attitude or bad attitude towards something, hatred towards something. So they also spoke badly about the Indian culture. Okay, they did not really favor the Indian culture. So that is why there is lack of objective perspective in their writing. Okay, it was more of subjective in nature. Let's proceed and talk about the British officers who wrote about Indian history. So first we are talking about Sir Alexander Cunningham. He was the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. So you have to remember this, all right? And the number of ancient sites that were excavated and the sites which were mentioned in the Buddhist texts were all selected for excavation and research by him. So he wrote about these things. And then we have Sir John Marshall. So he discovered the Harappan civilization. Okay, it proved that Indian civilization dated back to 3rd millennium BCE. Then James Mill, he wrote the history of British India. So the first book to be written on Indian history by a British historian in the third volume, which was published in 1817. But again, it lacked objectivity, which means it was completely his perspective, his take on the Indian culture and the history. Then we have Mount Stuart Elphiston. He was the governor of Bombay, and his book, The History of India, was published in 1841. Let's proceed ahead and see some more British officers. Then we have Grant Duff. So his book was A History of Maharathas, and this was published in 3 volumes. It shows inclination towards condemning Indian culture and history, which means his focus was morely about, going against the Indian culture and history, condemning. All right. Then we have Colonel Todd. So his book, Todd's Annals of Rajasthan. In this book, he wrote about the history of Rajasthan. And he also had a condemning attitude towards Indians. So you all can see, students, though they have written about India and India's history, but it was very much subjective in nature. Then we have William Wilson Hunter, and his book is about a brief history of India. And his book came out in 2 volumes, okay? And it shows somewhat impartial treatment of history, all right? So he was the one who did not show biasness, but rather it was impartial treatment of history. No partiality was shown, whereas in the other books that we are talking about, they were all lacking objectivity. Okay, so this was about the traditions of Indian historiography. Now let's talk about the next thing that we have, which is Indian historiography in various ideological frameworks. So first we have colonial historiography. So this was mainly written by the British officers and the Christian missionaries who had come to our country. All right. So they are writing, like I said, their writing reflects their view. Okay, that Indian culture has negligible importance. Okay, they ridicule the Indian culture as perpetually backward and undeveloped. See, this is what I was talking about previously also, that their writings were very much subjective and they had prejudice towards the Indian culture. So they thought of Indian culture as very much backward and undeveloped. Okay, so their writings justified the colonial rule. This also we saw previously, that more of their writings were talking about the colonial era, and they justified it in their books, in their writings, that it was okay to colonize India. All right. So the 5 volumes of Cambridge History of India was published between 1920 to 1937 CE, and these are the examples of colonial historiography. Let's proceed and talk about the Orientalist historiography. So many European historians who had curiosity about countries in the East were known as the Orientalists. Okay, so a comparative study of Sanskrit and some other European language was conducted by them, and their studies resulted in a perception that an Indian language could be mother of all Indo-European languages. See, that is why a lot of words in English are also from Sanskrit. Okay. So who are these Orientalist historians who did a comparative study? So first we have Sir William Jones, and he founded the Asiatic Society in Kolkata in 1784. It channelized research in ancient Indian literature and history. Okay. Then we have Friedrich Max Müller, and he was deeply interested in the Sanskrit language and literature. He actually translated a lot of Sanskrit text of Hitopadesh in German. All right. He published 50 volumes of the sacred books of the East. He also compiled the Rig Veda in 6 volumes. Okay. So this is what Orientalist historiography is. So they are the ones who actually took interest in the language and literature of India, and did a comparative study and also gave in more to it. All right. Then we have Edward Say. He had brought imperialistic interest of the Orientalist historiography into light. Imperialism, basically. All right. Then we have nationalistic historiography. All right. So here there were a lot of English educated Indian historians who felt the need to restore the glory of ancient Indian culture. Why? Because already we saw how the Britishers were portraying it, correct? So what did they do? They felt a need, all right, of writing about their country to glorify it, to bring in the lost pride of their country, their culture, and that is what they did. Okay, so their writings are known as nationalistic historiography. Okay, they criticize the prejudiced history of ancient India, which was written by the British officers. Quite obvious now, since the Indians are only writing it, they will write it in favor of our culture, correct? So they criticized whatever the Britishers had written. So the Indian historians wanted to create awareness among the Indian masses through their writings about our rich past, rather than focusing on what the Britishers had written about our culture, about our past. They wanted to focus, the Indian historians wanted to focus on the rich past that our country has. Okay, so nationalistic historians tried to seek the golden era of Indian history. So they are at the times criticized for glorifying the past at length and ignoring the historical truth. Now, this is pretty important. Today, they are somewhat criticized towards a certain extent, towards a certain part, for glorifying the past so much that they ignored the historical truth. Okay, so let's say certain practices in India were cruel, right? Like sati, child marriage. These are not customs that we should glorify. Okay, so that is why till a certain extent they are also criticized. Okay, let's move ahead and talk about the writings of Indian historiography. Okay, since we saw that we also have Indian writers, and in this chapter we are dealing with the Indian tradition. So first we have Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar, and he inspired the nationalistic history in Maharashtra. He criticized the prejudiced history which was written by the British officers about India. Okay, then we have V.K. Rajwade. So he was the founder. He founded the Bharat Itihas Samshodak Mandal, and his views on historiography are that he said that history does not include only the stories of political image, conspiracies, and wars for seizing power, but it is all inclusive image of past societies. So everything. It is not restricted to politics or wars or power, but it is even about the common man. Okay. So he was of the opinion that we should write our own history, and he insisted that history should be written using authentic documents. All right, which was a good thing. Okay, so that we come to know the exact truth. Then next we have Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade. He explained the detailed background of the rise of Maratha power. So all economical, social, religious, cultural preparations before the rise of Maratha power were all given to us in his writings. Okay. Then we have Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. So Indian were inspired to fight against the British rule, and nationalistic historiography gained momentum and inspired regional history too. So this is what he focused more on. Then we have Govind Sakharam Sardesai, and he published various volumes of Maratha history. And people started addressing him as Riya Satkar. Okay. Again, you can just make a table and try to analyze this. Okay. Now we're talking about historiography in the post-independence era. Let's see what happened after independence. So the scholars who are there post-independence, which means after independence, the era that came. So they felt the need to write about various communities, science, economics, political ideologies, all of these things, okay? And these systems, what they wanted to write, were mainly influenced by three ideological schools. So we are going to talk about the Marxist history, subaltern history, and the feminist history. So the Marxist history was basically the historians focused on the means of production. Like how we saw in chapter number 1 about Karl Marx, that's what it is here. Okay, the means of productions, the mode of production, and the industrial relation. What was their prime focus? It actually laid focus and emphasis on analyzing the study and the impact of every social event on people. Okay, they studied the transition of the caste system also. All right, we know that in India caste system was very much prevalent, right? So Commander Shripad Amrut Dange, he was the founder of the Indian Communist Party, and he wrote a book about primitive communism to slavery, which became a prominent example of Marxist historiography. Then we also have the Indian Marxist historian like Damodar Dharmanand Kosambi. We have Comrade Shripad Amrut Dange. We have Sharat Patil, Comrade Sharat Patil, and Ram Sharan Sharma. So they are the ones who wrote Marxist history. Then we have the subaltern history. So the seeds of subaltern history are actually found in the Marxist history only. Why? Because Marxist history talks about the caste system, okay, means of production, correct? The society, division of society, right? So subaltern history is what it is about the history of the people who come in the bottommost rank of the society. See, because every strata of society will experience the same event in a different light. Okay, so subaltern history dealt with the bottommost rank of the society. All right, so here how did they started writing about it? It was about what these people who belong to the lowest ranks, how did they perceive history. So Italian historian Antonio Gramsci played an important role in developing this idea. Then we have Ranjit Guha, who played an important role in establishment of the subaltern history as an important academic school of historiography. Why? Because like I said, it is important to understand every perspective, right? So if we are having divisions in terms of society, so every division will experience their event in their own manner. So Mahatma Phule also drew attention to the exploitation of women, Shudras and the Ati Shudras under the pretext of religion in his book Gulam Giri. Then we have Baba Sahib, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, in his two books, Who Were the Shudras and the Untouchables. He wrote about the injustice that was done to the Dalit and their significant role in shaping the cultural and political aspect of India. Okay, so these people focused on subaltern history. Now let's talk about feminist history. So feminist history is what we spoke about in chapter number 1 also, and the same thing had happened here as well, okay, in the post-independence era. So there were certain challenges that was faced by feminist historians. So for a long period of time, it was only the male scholars who were writing history, okay, which means only the main dominative perspective of history was brought forward. So hence the role and achievements of women in history remained neglected. Nobody was writing about it, nobody was talking about it. Correct? Also, women were considered as the backward section of the society, right? That's what we saw in the subaltern history as well. So, to highlight this fact became a major task for feminist historians and to compile and the study of historical writings of women. So, they were finding it very difficult, but yet they did write about it. So, it was also necessary and important to rethink of women's position in history. All right, that's how your feminist history came up, correct? So, let us see who were the feminist historians. So we have Tarabai Shinde who wrote the book Stree Purush Tulna and it was published in 1882. Okay, she was one of the most influential women in history. All right. So it was the first feminist book in India and it attracted prevalent male domination and caste system in our country in India. Then we have Pandita Ramabai. She wrote a book on the life of women and it was published in 1888. So the name of her book was The High Caste Hindu Women. Then we have Meera Kosambi. She wrote an essay on real life of Pandita Ramabai and Dr. Rukhmabai. All right. So we have Dr. Sharmila Rege and she wrote the book Writing Caste, Writing Gender, Reading Dalit Women's Testimony. So this book contains essays and on the autobiographies of Dalit women. All right. So these are very prominent female historians that we have who actually started writing about women's perspective and how women were dealing in all these events. Okay. So that's all students in this chapter and I hope you all have understood it. Thank you so much.